Hi, and welcome to the first video for Module 4. In this video, we're going to look at a number of different user interface controls and explore a whole bunch of other issues related to designing the user interface part of an iOS app. So let me demo, first of all, the app that we're going to be building, and then we'll get started building it. So the app in this chapter is called Button Fun, and we'll run it here on a simulator, and you can see it's got all kinds of stuff going on. There's an image view up at the top. You're probably already an old pro with image view from the previous assignment, but we're gonna look at a few aspects of adding one there. We've got two text fields here. It may be a little hard to see. Place to enter your name, and you can do that with a soft keyboard. And then you need some way to make the soft keyboard go away, which ends up to require some extra coding to make that happen. Way to enter a number, such as a phone number. And we're using the number pad to do that. You'll notice there's no return key here that I can press to make it go away. So we're going to add a second way of making keyboards go away, and that's if you tap in the background of the application. Below that, we've got a slider, which you can adjust, and a label that's showing us how the value of that slider has changed. We'll implement that. Then we've got a segmented control. A segmented control is sort of like what's called radio buttons in other user interfaces. And the idea here is that you can have one of the segments selected at any time. We've only got two segments here, and they control what's displayed in the lower part of the app. Right now switches are selected, and I've got two switches, and they sort of control one another. So if you flip one, the other one flips with it. But you can switch to a button, and the switches go away, a button appears. And we're going to cause this button to run an action sheet and raise an alert. So if we press the button, we get asked sort of a confirmation dialogue. Are you sure? Yes, I'm sure, or no way. If you say no way, it just goes away. We'll start again. If you say yes, I'm sure, then it throws up another panel showing that, and it uses my name from the name field to indicate that the thing was done, whatever that I was selecting with the button. And then when I click that, it goes away. And those are called modal dialogues, in that the only thing you can do when one of them is up is respond to the modal dialogue, and that's shown by graying out the whole rest of the user interface. So a fair number of techniques here for user interface design that'll be useful to you. Let's go ahead and create an app to do these things. So I have a test app going here, but I'm going to close that out, and we'll create a new one. So this will be a new project. It's a single view iOS application, and we're going to call it Spring 19 Button Fun. That's when I'm writing these lectures. And we'll create that. We've got our usual app delegate, view controller, and storyboard. And let's go ahead and start putting some things in the storyboard. Let's do the image view first. I'm going to put it near the top. I could go as high as that, but I actually don't think I want to, and I want it centered. And I've got to specify some content for it. Now, in order to, as you know from the project for the last module, if you want an image included, you need to add it to the storyboard, or to add it to the project resources. There's a directory here called assets, xc assets, and we're going to get that from the source code for the book. If you download the example source code for the book, it's organized in terms of the chapters, and for this chapter in the assets directory is the A-Press logo. So we're going to grab that and put it in, just drag and drop it into our project here. And you'll notice that there's 3 images actually in there, and you can see that up here. These naming conventions tell iOS the resolutions of these images, and it'll use whichever one's appropriate for various models of iPhone and iPad, depending on how big their screen resolutions are. So we just went ahead and grabbed the whole image set and dropped it in our project, and it shows up in this way in the inspector. So we'll go back to our storyboard. Now we can specify, now we'll have an image that we can specify to go there. So I'm going to the attributes inspector for the image view. I can select it either here or here, and the main thing I need to add is which image I'm going to use. The only one that shows up is the only one I've added to the project, and it's the A-Press logo. I want to put it there. Now, I want to look at the rest of these attributes here. If I wanted a different image to show up when this image view was in the highlighted state, I could drag and drop that to here. My present state is not highlighted. How do I want accessibility to handle, the accessibility software to handle the image? We'll just, you would have it adjust the image size if necessary. And then we get to content mode. The default is scale to fill, but there are a bunch of other, which means it's going to scale it horizontally and vertically to fit the space that you've put it in. And so let's see. So say if we looked at, we can you know, mush it around, and that may not be what we want to have happen. So I'm going to go to something like the original shape, and I'm going to select a different mode. Aspect fit will do as well as it can to fill the entire space of the image view, preserving the horizontal to vertical aspect ratio that it can of the original picture. Center will keep it at its original resolution, yet center it in the view. We can specify whether we want the user to be able to interact with the image view. Now, normally a user wouldn't interact with an image view. It's kind of like a label. It's just sort of there. Now, but for any view, any control that you're adding to an iOS project, it's certainly possible to make that control interactive by adding some methods to it that would intercept events. We're not going to do that. This is just an image, so we'll leave all that stuff alone. Alpha specifies how transparent the image is. 1 is fully opaque, 0 is invisible. 0.5 would be kind of halfway there, and this is useful if you want things to overlay each other. We're not going to overlay anything here, so opaque is fine. Given we can specify what we want for a background in the image, the parts of the image view container that the image doesn't fill. We actually don't want to do that. We just want the unfilled part of the image view to be whatever color the underlying view is. And you can set a tint as well. You can specify, is the image view itself opaque, or should things underneath it show? Should it be hidden or visible? We'll use this when we're implementing the segmented control to make the buttons in the switch appear and disappear later on. And we can specify some kind of stretching if we wanted to, but we don't want to do that. So we're pretty happy with that. Now let's go ahead and add those labels for the name and the number and text fields to go in those. So let me get the text fields. You notice when I just type in text, there are 2 choices. a text field, which is a single line, or a text view, which you would use for something like an editor or I don't know, an ebook or something where there's a lot of text, quite a few lines of text to display. Here we only have one line of text, so we'll use the text field. We'll grab two of these things, we'll line them up, and we will we're going to make them somewhat bigger. We're going to have to set constraints for all this stuff later on, but for now we're just going to sort of use the human interface guidelines to line things up. Now we need a couple labels. And you can center this either on the bottom of the text, the midpoint of the text, or the top of the text. I'm going to center on the bottom. And for this label, I'm going to change the text to the word name, colon. I'm going to move it a little ways off, just sort of to meet the user interface guidelines. And let's see, what have I got here? This looks like somehow I've got a spurious text field. I'm just going to delete it. I'm going to add another label here. This one I'm going to call number. And I'll justify those and justify them with the bottoms of the text fields. So we sort of got things where we want them to be. Let's look at the attributes of the text field, sort of the way we did for the image view. You can specify what font you want text to be in, what color, and so forth, how you want the text to be inlined in the box. Do you want a button to allow you to clear the text to appear? Do you want to put in some default text that would show up when the app starts, or a placeholder that's going to disappear the minute you start typing? What's the minimum font size, and so forth. You can also specify what kind of a keyboard you want the user to be able to type with, and this the default ASCII keyboard is fine for the name, but for the number, let's change that to the phone pad, since what we're going to be entering there is a phone number. And we'll put some default text here as well. We're going to need to access the values that get typed into these boxes, so we'll need to add outlets connecting these to variables in the code. So let's bring up our assistant editor, which we can either do here. And we'll get rid of that view so we can see more of this. Here's our view controller. The assistant editor sort of anticipates based on what we're doing what we're going to be adding. We'll control drag into the view controller class. We're going to put an outlet there. It's the outlet of a text field. It's the top one for the name, so we'll call it name field. We'll connect that. And we'll control drag another one for the number field. The type is right, so we don't need to change any of that. We'll use those later on. We also need to set up, we can close the assistant editor. We're done with that now. And let's put some constraints in to sort of locate this stuff, regardless what type of phone we're going to be using. We'd like this image to be sort of this distance from the top, no matter what phone we're on. So there's a couple of ways you could do that. I'm going to pull back up the hierarchical view, and we'll see that there are no constraints here. And if I look at the size inspector, I see there are no constraints here as as well. So number of ways we can add a constraint. Since we're adding a constraint to the top, one thing we can do is control, click, drag from the image view sort of near the top of the enclosing view. And we could click here that we want to add the top space to the safe area. We're going to add a constraint that sets how this image view is going to look with respect to the top to be the way it is here in the interface builder. Now the other thing I'd like to do is center it horizontally, and I could have done that in the same go. I can control drag from the image view out here, and I could say center horizontally in the safe area, but I'm not going to do it that way. I'm going to do it another way. I'll go down here and pick this the align box, and we're going to center horizontally in our container. So now we've fully specified how this image view should look. It should be this far from the top, and it should be centered horizontally. So we have a picture of the center line here. Now we've got to add constraints for these other things, the name and the number labels and the other stuff. And it's a little iffier here what the right thing to do is, because we've got two things. We can't really center any of it because the field where you're going to type is much bigger than the the label. So what we're going to say is we're going to specify how far from the top this name label should be and how far from the left edge it should be. Likewise for the number, we're going to set its constraints to the left edge and the top, and to the left edge and to the label that's above it. And I could do those the same way by control dragging, but instead I'm going to use this icon down here, and I'm going to specify, oops, I've got the wrong thing selected, so I'm going to cancel it. I'll select this label and then pick this constraint adder, and I'm going to add a constraint on the left and a constraint on the top to be fixed to be those two sizes. I'm going to do the same for the number. I'll fix its height to the thing above it and to the left safe area. You can see it's adding, for the selected things, it adds, it'll show you the constraints that are there. Let's align these two things. So I'll select this, the text box, and select the label. So I click on one and shift click on the other, then click align, and we're going to align the bottom edges of those two. Then I'll do the same thing here, click and shift click. We're going to align the bottom edges of those. We're also going to specify the distance from these to the right edge, so I'm going to control drag to the safe area, trailing space to safe area, and control drag here, trailing space to safe area. And let's see, I've constrained, I need to constrain, so you notice that it shrunk this one down, so I'm going to drag them both kind of back close, and I'm going to specify the distance from the label to the text field. So I'll set those horizontal spacings. And you'll notice that the little yellow caution sign outline went away. And that's because I've specified the way everything should look. And in fact, I can run this now. And there's my centered text field, the two labels, and the name and number fields. So I'll click in the name box, and a keyboard pops up, and I'll just enter some few random letters, and I'll click return. And the keyboard doesn't go away. And I'll click in the background, and the keyboard doesn't go away. And in fact, I don't have a way to make the keyboard go away. If I click down here in the number field, I could enter a number. Excuse me. But once again, I don't have a way to make that keyboard go away. So that's the next thing we need to do, and we'll proceed with that in the next video.